Most of us would rather get along with other people and have kind communications that go really well. So if you are unsettled by the kind of confrontation we see all around us, if your blood boils and your heart races with all the anger, this episode is for you.
We think that learning to practice mindfulness in tense moments can help you be the peacemaker that you want to be.
Welcome to the Practice of Stillness, where we look at how Latter-day Saints can bring more stillness to everyday life, in moments at church or with your family or in your relationship with God. It's a simple way to draw closer to God without necessarily doing more. I'm Jacob Hess.
And I'm Carrie Skarda. And the moment we're looking at in this episode is that kind of tension-filled moment when you're sitting there looking at someone and you're thinking, I don't like that person. President Nelson said that one of the best ways we can honor the Savior is to become a peacemaker. And today we're following up on this advice by exploring how practicing stillness can help us be peacemakers in conflict.
Sure, frustration arises for all of us. And like every emotion, indignation has a purpose. It teaches us something. Like, that's not right. And so we feel that. But in my experience, it's one thing to feel frustration flare up and pass away, and a whole nother thing when it sits in my gut for a long time, shaping my perceptions, words, and experiences, even in ways I may not realize. Now, our body is actually designed to feel temporary stress and work through it. It's when that stress stays with us constantly that things start to break down. So go ahead and feel frustrated. Notice and learn from it, but do whatever you can to help it pass. Praying, pleading, studying, talking, forgiving, until you find a way to get to some freedom and get underneath the resentment. That's possible, sometimes only with the Savior's help.
Thich Nhat Hanh, the author of Living Buddha, Living Christ, he has this great quote. He said, "Our capacity to make peace with another person and with the world depends very much on our capacity to make peace with ourselves. If we are at war with our parents, our family, our society, or our church, there's probably a war going on inside us also. So the most basic work for peace is to return to ourselves and create harmony among the elements within us, our feelings, our perceptions, and our mental states." One of the real gifts of cultivating inner stillness is that we become less knee-jerk reactive to the people around us, even the frustrating or difficult people who are around us. There's this great story of a peace activist. His name was David Hartsoe, and in the 1960s, he was a young man, and he was sitting at a desegregation counter in the South. He was a Christian, and he spent a lot of time meditating on the words of the Sermon on the Mount. And he happened to be reading the Sermon on the Mount at this moment when he was sitting at this desegregated counter in a sit-in, protesting desegregation. And he turned around, and there was a man standing there with a knife pointed directly at his heart. And the man was very angry and said, if you don't leave here, then I'm going to stab this knife through your heart. And David Hartsoe, who had just been pondering and sitting with the words of the Sermon on the Mount about loving your enemies, he turns to this man and he said, "Do what you think is best, and I'll still try to love you." And I think this is what meditating and pondering the scriptures and being fully present grounded in the Savior's love gives us this moment of pause where we can respond to even intense, difficult conflict from a place of peace and not reactivity, where we don't get triggered by someone else's behavior, but we have the power to stay aligned with our own values, even the value of loving our enemy. And we don't need the other person to change in order to stay aligned with that value. When we're grounded in that kind of stillness that the Savior offers, we can respond even to intense stimuli like that from a place of love.
It makes me think about how in meditation, the practice is really about sitting with all the stuff inside us, the contradictions, the tensions, and just watching it with gentleness, with compassion. And what you just described feels like an invitation to do the same thing with all this stuff between us, right?
Yeah.
And even in our most important relationships, there's like tensions or questions, or like, what if we can hold all of that with gentleness and compassion in the same way? Just like meditation, things start to clear up, things start on their own, not because we're making it go away. I learned the most about this when I went to graduate school and lived with people that really disagreed with me, and I disagreed with them. And instead of, in America, we like to watch shows about those other people. I was with them all the time, and I fell in love with these people who didn't share my faith, they didn't share my politics. I realized their profound goodness. None of them were twirling their mustache, plotting the overthrow of the Republic. They just had different ideas on what America needed. And I found I don't have to be scared of the fact that this person sees the world very differently. And it became such a joyful practice for me to not have to be at war with half of America because I didn't share their politics. That I love how our prophet is calling all of us to focus on this sort of peacemaking.
I actually have learned a lot about holding tension like this in working with you, Jacob. There were times when we were writing the book, The Practice of Stillness, and also The Power of Stillness, where we didn't always completely agree on how to phrase something or the direction to go. And my inclination in those moments is to withdraw. And I really appreciated how you mentored just holding still in those moments and trusting that something better can emerge as we hold the differences between us. And in doing that, what I learned from that is that indeed conflict can be transformed, and that if we hold it in gentleness and in stillness and in trust in each other and in the process, good can come out even of conflict.
I'm glad you see that so positively looking back. I'm not sure in the moment we were feeling that, but
Right.
that
it
is
came
true.
forward.
We
Yeah.
held it, and something resolved.
Something better emerged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for you, coming full circle, about that person that you may struggle with at church or in your neighborhood, or who has different politics than you, take a deep breath and recognize that face as another chance to practice. And the space between you and this person that gets complicated, not a problem. This is advanced practice, chance to stretch your soul, learn patience, charity, and maybe even how to just sit with discomfort when things don't seem easy to resolve.
Thank you so much for joining us in the Practice of Stillness. We hope that you'll join us again.